I was working with a therapist to deal with a whole bunch of stuff from when I was a kid. And we were making great progress. It was very effectively dealing with kind of what happened when I was a kid. But the after effects of what happened, the way that I shaped my life to avoid those experiences recurring, was very unhealthy. It was effectively a shrinking of my world because I avoided everything that I thought was risky. I avoided everything that could even come close to those experiences again. And when you do that, and when it succeeds and you're safe, you keep doing it. And your world gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's not great. But as an individual person, I was able to kind of white knuckle my way through it. Like, okay, my life is little, but I'm cool. I love being alone, right? Yeah. Well, that works until you have kids. And when you have kids and you see what happens to a kid with an overprotective parent, then you start to think, you gotta make a change. It's not just about me anymore. It's not just about white knuckling it through and like accepting my circumstances. Things had to change. And so I started working with a therapist. Well, first, I actually started working with a physician. Say like, okay, are there chemical or biological reasons why I'm feeling just bummed out and feeling like I don't even know how to have fun anymore? And yeah, there were, and we addressed those. But that was step one, right? And then step two was to start talking to a therapist. Figure out like, why? How did I get here? And that wasn't a particularly fun process, but it was effective, right? Felt like a roller coaster. And eventually that roller coaster kept going up and up. So I had a pretty good understanding of what was going on. But like I said, I had all these habits that even after having dealt with childhood trauma, those habits were guiding how I made decisions in my life. And I couldn't seem to get around them in therapy. Anytime we present a new idea, I would think my way back around to this world shrinking view that I had. And I don't know exactly where I saw it. I think it was in a book about military treatment of PTSD. And it's talking about all different options that have been tried over the years. And psilocybin was mentioned as being very effective. And I read that years ago. I thought, well, that's cool, but I'm not a veteran, and I'm terrified of anything that's risky, so there's no way I'm ever gonna do it. And then, what was it, Measure 109 came along, and I read an article in the Gazette, the Corvallis Gazette-Times, and it talked about Unstuck. And I thought, well, okay, this is legal now. It's controlled. You're not alone when you're doing it. What you're consuming is a known thing. And the medical research shows that it's not particularly physically risky. And so, why not? It also sounded interesting, right? Like going in the exact opposite of a shrinking world, it's the potential to grow my world. And so I started talking to the folks at Unstuck. I also read everything I could possibly read about Measure 109, how it was supposed to work. And everything just seemed so smart and so safe and so sane, right? You don't hear that a lot in the like medical care world. It's a sane, humane way to address a mental health crisis, which is exactly where I was, right? A constantly shrinking world that is now affecting your family that's not a minor problem. That's a huge problem. And so, yeah, so I talked to Unstuck, and I talked to a facilitator to do kind of an interview, figure out what I wanted to get out of it, where I wanted to go with it, and a little bit about how it worked. And then we scheduled a session, and we did it. Yes, 10 different times. There was the money consideration. There was just, I've never done any drugs in my life ever, including alcohol. Decision, like, am I really gonna go take psilocybin, right? There's the decisions about physical well-being, whether I had exhausted other options, whether the efficacy was kind of what I wanted it to be. I don't want to waste effort, you know? And that was an interesting one to learn about, that it's exceptionally effective, you know? And not just like, here you're gonna take this pill for the rest of your life, But here you're going to do something that's going to change you for the rest of your life. I'm like, okay, that works, right? So, and then the very last thing was like, do I have the guts to do this, right? Like, do I have the guts to go and just take on something I've never taken on before? And if it weren't for the facilitator I was working with and the clarity with which they communicated with me and let me know that I would be safe and gave me the feeling that I would be safe during the process, yeah, that made me go, yeah, I can do it. That pushed me over the edge. And the facility is very nice as well, very comfortable and very professional. It's not like a basement and frat house. It's a pretty nice professional place. And so there's just no part of working with Unstuck that didn't feel comfortable. And so, yeah. Now, of course, on the day of, as I'm driving there, I was still keeping in my mind, like, if I don't feel this is right, I can still say no at the very last second. And my wife is looking at me and she's like, are you really gonna do this? I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. And walked in and just decided that was it. Was the experience at all what I expected? I got some good advice that said, don't expect anything specific. And when you start going somewhere, lean into it. Don't fight it. Even if you don't think it's going to end up where you think it's going to end up, or even if it's scary, just lean into it. And I think that was spectacular advice because it was not what I could have expected, right? Like it's very difficult to describe what happens during a trip. And that didn't stop me from trying. I forced my poor facilitator to write down pages and pages of essentially nothing, because it's such a massive, huge, indescribable experience that I felt I wanted to save it and keep it. I didn't know that I was going to remember it. I didn't know that I would come back and have perfect, clear memory of everything that happened. And I actually thought that, you know, having no experience with drugs, I thought that it would be like erased, you know, and gone. And, but that wasn't the case at all. And nor did I feel like I was out of control during any part of it. I took a high dose, one which pretty much separated me from reality, but I felt completely in control. And I was at certain times, like when I needed to go to the bathroom, just step out of it. And man, knowing you have that level of control during something this powerful is pretty cool, right? So I felt safer than I was expecting to feel. I felt more cared for than I was expecting to feel. And that made it a lot easier to lean into the experience and just let it happen. And it happened, man. It was big. So I have a strong affinity for trees that I didn't have before. No, so I drank the tea, which tasted like the earth, and the whole experience turned on like a switch. And for a moment, I actually had this weird feeling that if I didn't tell myself to breathe, I wouldn't breathe. And I panicked for just a second, like, okay. But then something clicked and I went, oh wait, no, my body knows how to do that. I'll let my body do that. And from that point, I just went on a ride. I eventually kind of had a split from my own identity. My identity and myself became different things, and I was able to look at them from the outside and see. There was this point where I kind of split into two. There was my identity and my true self. And I shifted to view that from the outside, to view those two things from the outside. And I came to see that the identity I had created in reacting to everything that happened when I was a kid is no more a part of myself than a shoelace that holds my foot in my shoe. It's just something there that served a purpose, but I don't have to have that define me. And so I said goodbye. And I believe that my facilitator was listening to me say, goodbye, I don't need you anymore. I don't need you. You're not important. And I literally just pushed those pieces of me away. And they have not come back. So that's a big deal, right? I feel like I walked out a completely new human being. And my family sees it, my kids see it. I feel like I can think circles around myself. The way it's just, everything is more in control while allowing myself to experience more new things. I no longer instinctively react the way I used to. I'm now open to new experiences. I'm open to joy, which was inaccessible previous to this. So it's an emotional thing, right? So, and that is the thing that I didn't expect, that the magnitude of change would be that massive or that fast. And here I am months and months on. I didn't think it would last that long, but this feels like it's here for good, right? So how's my life changed, and are there any specifics I want to sort of mention, especially for other people, right, to know? And my glasses are fogged up from all that crying. There's some kind of comical things. Like, like I said, I have a strong affinity for trees. And because one of the only visuals that I didn't have a lot of visuals during my trip, was walking in a dense forest just for a minute. It was a very short period of time, but there were really interesting things that happened that now made me look at forests and trees in a different way. That's a strange, random effect, right? But I love it. I love that I go on a walk now and I can remember how beautiful that was. The colors were so rich, your senses are so alive, and the senses kind of bleed into one another. So green can smell a certain way and such. And that is just super cool, because now I'm kind of looking at trees a different way, and it's great, right? Beyond the comical, and beyond the sort of amusing, there's just the fact that all of my previous fortune telling, where I knew what was going to happen next, I was so pessimistic, so cynical, so guarded and armored, right? They make you know what's coming next. You're always on sentry duty, right? You're always like watching out for the thing that's going to go wrong. And I think those habits are kind of still there, but they're totally interrupted by other options. And they're not the first option anymore, right? The cynicism is not the first option. Yeah, still I can go there if I want to. And if I'm super tired or something like that, I can go there. But it is not my everyday thing. It does not direct my life the way it did before. And so, that's a big thing, to just feel like now I have a million options. And if we want to talk about integration for a second, that's kind of a shock, to walk out a different person thinking about the world in a different way. So I don't exactly feel lost at sea, but I do feel like, oh my God, I don't know how to be like this. I don't know how to be this person who can optimistically dive into things. Which direction do I go, right? And so I am continuing to get support with a therapist, and I'm actually kind of actively seeking out other people who've done journeys, who've had a trip, to talk about how are they managing their new selves. Because the world doesn't change, but you do, right? And so it kind of feels like the world has changed. And so with that, I'm just continually working on that. I think that process will take a long time. I'm trying to be very patient with it. But I'm close to 50, and I feel like time is going fast, and I'm like impatient too. but it's definitely, that's a challenging component. I'm enjoying the process, but it's definitely work, right? Like, I think you can't go into this and think it's just a miracle cure. You are an active participant in this process. You don't lose yourself in the trip, and you don't get to just escape afterwards. Here you are. You're on a path, and you gotta take every step. It's worth it. It's worth convincing yourself to do it, and it's worth every penny to do it. I grew up pretty poor, and managing money and taking care of money has been extremely important to me. I'm pretty frugal, and I would pay 5 times what I paid to get what I got out of this, and I wouldn't blink. But it is expensive, and it does cost money, and don't do it if you can't afford it, but do it if you can. Do it if you can. And do it with Unstuck.